Haunted by the unexplained. 1,200 tons of sinister mystery, what consumed a blue whale hole. For decades, the coastal town of Linden Beach thrived beneath a sunlit sky. Now, the horizon held a dark secret, a massive blue whale, its once mighty body bloated and eerily hollow, washed ashore. Whispers of dread rippled through the dim streets like the tide retreating from the shore, swept away by an unseen force. Sarah Blake stared at the monstrous sight, her heart racing. The sunset painted the horizon in a sickly orange hue, a sickening backdrop to the horror laid out before her. People gathered, drawn by curiosity and an instinctive dread. Were they observers or victims? The townsfolk murmured, their voices trembling with a fear that was more than mere disbelief. What could have done this? Someone whispered. Sarah wanted to shake them, to scream, to run, but her children needed her, tethering her to this nightmare. That night, as Sarah tucked Lily and Ethan into bed, the unsettling sensation of being watched crept into her bones. Shadows danced outside her window, long and twisted. It felt as if every flicker of the lamp and creak of the old house revealed something sinister lurking just out of sight. Waking in a cold sweat, the very absence of sound from the night was louder than any scream. Days passed, but the horror intensified. Pets began to vanish. There were no paw prints, no traces left behind, just silence where there once was life. The town held its breath, a taut string stretched close to snapping. Faint, unearthly sounds echoed from the abandoned shipyard nearby, stoking the fires of panic in her neighbors. What had consumed the whale? What was emerging from the depths? And then there was Marcus, the charming real estate developer. He smiled like a wolf in sheep's clothing, whispering promises of revitalization to a town that could barely stand. His presence was disarming, yet deep down, Sarah's instincts clawed at her, warning her away. New beginnings, he promised, but echoes of corruption followed him like dark clouds looming over the town. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Night after night, she felt the weight of dread pressing down, and each creak of the floorboards sent shivers down her spine. Then came the night she decided enough was enough, the need to shield her children increasing into an urgent cry. With every creak of a rusted fence and flicker of a dying streetlight, she pushed forward into the heavy darkness, her heart pounding as she approached the shipyard. When she peered into the murky depths of the site, she stumbled upon something grotesque. A gathering of townspeople clad in shadows, standing motionless with eyes glazed over in a trance. What had they lost? What menacing force was at work here? At that moment, a clang jolted Sarah from her thoughts, and she spun to find herself face to face with her worst fears. In the stillness of night, surrounded by threatening silhouettes, she stood at the edge of a revelation. What had consumed the blue whale was the same darkness threatening to consume them all. The question turned her blood to ice. Who or what had truly taken root in Linden Beach? The air crackled with an unnatural energy, a pulse of fear that ran through Sarah like an electric shock. Shadows melded into each other like black smoke, distorting the familiar into the terrifying. She could feel her breath quickening, the taste of copper rising in her throat. Sarah, a voice whispered through the darkness. Her heart thundered as she turned, but the figure melted away into the night. Panic surged through her. The townspeople remained still, eyes vacant, entranced as if caught in a nightmarish spell. Lily, Ethan, she called, her voice strangled by raw dread. She couldn't lose them too. Moving closer, she reached out, grasping at arms, shaking them desperately. Wake up. This isn't you. Each hand felt cold and unyielding, like touching frost-tinged glass. But they didn't respond, lost in some sinister trance that seemed stitched together by the darkness swallowing the shipyard. Then, moving beyond the frozen crowd, her gaze fell on something horrific, a slithering shadow creeping from the ship's bowels. A mass of blackness twisted and churned, undulating like a living thing. Sarah's breath caught in her throat, raw terror gripping her chest as she realized what loomed before her. From the depths below, a low, guttural sound echoed, a sorrowful wail that sent tremors through her bones. It was a call, no, an invitation. It called to her children, beckoning them into the abyss. No, she screamed, fear overloading her senses. She spun around, searching for an escape, but the townspeople shifted slightly, blocking her path like a macabre wall. The darkness whispered sweet nothings, promising glory if one would merely step forward. There was no choice. She had to break the enchantment. Sarah backed into the cold iron of the shipyard's remnants, searching for the words that could reach them, the sacred echo of love and loyalty. Come back to me, she shouted, heart thundering in her ears. Lily, Ethan, I am here. Their faces shifted, shadows flickering through their vacant gazes, just out of reach. Suddenly, Ethan blinked, confusion breaking through the fog. Lily trembled, then let out a soft whimper, the haze diminishing, albeit just slightly. Mom. Ethan's voice was thin, a ghost of its former strength. But before she could reach them, Marcus stepped forward, his charming smile now a twisted grin, the light around him warped. They're better off, Sarah. Join them. He gestured toward the darkness, the shadows swirling like a vortex, eager for a fresh soul. That a moment of clarity shot through her, and she lunged toward her children. No, I want to let you take them. In that desperate moment, the air shifted. The mass of shadows recoiled briefly, a shudder passing through it, stealing its momentum and sending ripples of darkness clashing against the moonlight. But Marcus laughed, the sound chilling her to the core. You can't fight what you don't understand. He stepped back, allowing the shadows to surge forward, swallowing the flickering brilliance of the moon. The townspeople started to sway, as if the very ground beneath them was alive, responding to the call of the darkness. The wail grew louder, and Sarah's heart raced. She had to do something, anything, before it was too late. Swallowing her fear, she took a step closer to the wailing abyss, inching forward, clutching a piece of her children's warmth still trapped behind the veil of twilight. As she reached out, pulling everything she had left, a blinding light flared, illuminating the darkness that enshrouded the shipyard. For an instant, she could see the true nature of the horror lingering there. Thousands of eyes blinked back in terror, the eyes of the town. But what she saw next made her scream, a figure materializing within the shadows, a monstrous visage that twisted and turned, its shape ever-changing. Sarah, it rasped in a voice that echoed like her greatest fears. Caught between worlds, she felt her grip slip, the abyss yawning open around her. What was this beast? What did it want? As the true terror of Linden Beach revealed itself, Sarah realized the darkness was only a prelude to something far worse. In that moment, she understood, the fight was just beginning. What had consumed the blue whale was only the start of a much larger nightmare, and she was right in the middle of it. As her scream echoed into the night, a question hung heavy in the air: would anyone survive to see the dawn again? The figure loomed closer, elongating into shapes that twisted and bent, all while keeping its haunting gaze fixated on Sarah. The eyes, so many eyes, were not just the eyes of the townspeople anymore. They had consumed the souls of the lost, their light dimmed and swallowed by a darkness that defied reason. Sarah, the voice hissed again, filled with the bitterness of countless dreams shattered. She felt the pull of its gaze, a magnetic force that threatened to wrap around her heart and squeeze until it cracked. Panic made her legs feel like lead. Stay back. Get away from me, she cried, her voice barely reaching past the thundering chaos that consumed her mind. The feeling of helplessness clawed at her throat, leaving a bitter taste in her mouth. Ethan's eyes were wide, flickers of awareness sparking like dying flames. Mom, help us. He reached toward her, stretching a trembling hand, but the darkness ensnared him once more, pulling him back. Each stride she took felt like trudging through molasses, the air thick and unyielding. Lily, she shouted, desperation spilling from her lips, a mantra in the night. She would not stop. The abyss might pull her closer, but she wouldn't be snared willingly. Swirling shadows licked her arms, chilling her to the core as their whispers grew louder, crooning promises of freedom and power. Yet all she could think about was the warmth of her children's laughter, the echoes of their joy before the darkness claimed them. Leave them alone, she screamed, her voice raw, as if her very soul were begging to be heard. Suddenly, a hand grasped her wrist, a vice that pulled her toward the encroaching shadows. She turned, ready to fight. But it was Marcus, his intoxicating smile now grotesque, standing just beyond the shimmer of light. The more you fight, the tighter the bindings become. Sarah, he crooned, his voice oozing with false sweetness. Join the darkness. There's a place for you among us. You'll be stronger, free of fear. Anger ignited within her, and in that fiery moment, she felt a flicker of hope. No, you're wrong. Love is stronger than your darkness. She broke free from his hold, centering her gaze on the flickering shadows and the monstrous figures swirling within. With every ounce of love she had for her children, she opened her heart wide, sending her emotions cascading outward like an unstoppable tide. Hope surged within her. The shadows flickered, momentarily disconcerted, as the heart-wrenching wail of the creature echoed. The townspeople swayed again, a wave of uncertainty washing over their empty expressions. Feel her love, she shouted, the words spilling from her as a fierce conviction propelled her forward. Remember who you are? One townsperson, an old woman with sunken cheeks and vacant eyes, blinked hard. For a heartbeat, the shadows receded just enough for Sarah to catch a glimpse of the world outside they had to remember. But the voice of the creature crested above the waves of hope, wrapping around her mind like a serpent. Your love will only feed the void. The laughter that followed was a chorus of the damned, mingling with the despair that lingered in the air. Sarah pushed against the shadowy mass, a wall closing in on her. She thought of Ethan and Lily, their faces, their laughter. She thought of every moment she had shared with them, and for the first time, anger fused with love. She wouldn't let them be consumed. Ethan, Lily, fight this. The whispering shadows recoiled, the waves of darkness holding back just a little longer as flickers of the children emerged. She could see the outline of her son and daughter fighting their bond to the dark, the realization of their mother's love igniting resolve within them. But just as she reached them, the unseen beast shifted again, ready to retaliate. The pinched look on Marcus's face betrayed some flicker of fear, and for the first time, doubt shimmered in his eyes. Together, we can break this, Sarah shouted, a battle cry against the dark. Unknown energies surged through her limbs, enveloping the last remnants of resistance, but threats loomed larger. A piercing scream erupted from the gathering shadows, raw and ravenous. Then it struck. The darkness surged back, driven by fury, seeking to devour her, her children, everything in the midst of the chaos. A question pierced through the clamor: would the love she wielded be enough to pierce the heart of the defender, or would she soon join the ranks of those lost to the shadows? As the darkness swooped down, she braced herself for the ultimate confrontation, knowing that the line between love and despair could shatter in an instant. The shadows converged, rushing toward Sarah like a tidal wave, hungry and relentless. She could feel their chill, creeping into her bones as she braced for impact. The screams echoed in her mind: Ethan's cry, Lily's laughter twisted into anguish. Her heart thundered in her chest, and in that frantic moment, she resolved to fight. She stretched out her hands, palms up, channeling every shred of her love into a beam that pierced the veil of darkness. You will not take them. The force of her declaration pushed against the shadows, and for a heartbeat, they hesitated, swirling as doubt seeped into their cold core. But the creature writhed, its voice twisting around her, a serpent of despair. You are but a flicker, Sarah. Your love is weak. It's a mere spark in the dark. The darkness surged back, more insidious than before, gnashing its teeth and slashing at her defenses. She felt her footing slip, the ground beneath her shifting into a treacherous pit of despair. Panic clawed at her throat as she stumbled back, but then she saw them: Ethan and Lily, trapped yet fighting to break free. Their eyes glinted with determination. Mom, we can't let it win, Ethan shouted, reaching for her. Together, Lily echoed, their voices ringing through the suffocating gloom. Somewhere deep inside, a new resolve ignited. They were stronger than this nightmare. She caught a glimpse of their hands brushing against the dark barrier, struggling, pushing against it. The shadows momentarily hesitated, as if uncertain of the new battle being waged within. "Hold on," Sarah cried, her voice breaking through the darkness. "Hold on to each other. Love binds us." With that reminder, she felt the warmth of their connection radiate among the tendrils of darkness. It was a thread, fragile yet resilient. She focused on that thread, letting its light connect her to her children, to the love that had given her strength before. Clenching her fists, she poured everything she had into that invisible bond. It began as a glow, a flicker of hope ignited, traveling from her heart to theirs. She could see the shadows contorting uneasily, like a beast agitated by flames. She pressed deeper, unleashing the entirety of her love, shaking off the despair that clung to her. But the shadowy figure surged again, relentless and angry. And there it was, its true form towering, serpentine, full of malice and hunger. It snaked closer, and dark tendrils lashed out, scorching the air and wrap around her limbs like chains of ice. "Yield, Sarah. You will be lost, just like the others." "No," she shouted. The grip on her tightened, but she drew strength from Ethan and Lily. A word escaped her lips, a silent promise. "I will not stop." The combined force of intention streamed into the heart of the darkness, and with it, the chilling laughter turned to a guttural howl of fury. It flickered, recoiled, thrashing as if stung. The shadows hesitated, momentarily disoriented by the spark of love radiating outwards. And just like that, a gap formed. The darkness pulsed, vulnerable for the first time. Sarah's heart raced as she looked at Marcus, his once sweet face now contorted and grotesque, reflecting the chaos. In that moment, she saw the fleeting glimpse of the man he once was, slipping through the cracks of his own darkness. "Marcus," she yelled, cutting through the silence. "Remember who you are?" His laughter faltered, replaced by an uncertain grimace. The flickering eyes around them wavered, caught in an unsteady dream, as a soft whisper passed among the townspeople. "Help us," but as quickly as hope ignited, the shadows retaliated, swirling with a deafening roar. They lashed out, clawing at her, ready to pull her apart. With one final push, Sarah lunged toward her children, grasping their hands. "Together. Focus on love." The explosion of light erupted from them, illuminating the darkness for an instant, the promise of love beckoning the lost souls within. Yet even as the shadows began to wane, the relentless howl of the creature surged back, ready to reclaim its power. Would they withstand the challenge? Or would the shadows reclaim their dominion once and for all? In a heartbeat, as the edges of the light began to dim, Sarah could feel the darkness clawing back, threatening to capture her family once more. The darkness fell hard like a blanket, stifling and thick. Panic surged in Sarah's chest as she fought to keep the trembling fingers of her children locked in her grip. Dread pulled at her from all sides, a tangible weight that whispered of despair. But a single thought pierced through: they were together. "Don't let go," she urged, her voice barely breaking through the storm of chaos surrounding them. Ethan squeezed her hand tighter, muscles straining against the suffocating dark. "What do we do, Mom?" "We fight," Lily shouted. The determination in her voice sparked something inside Sarah, a flicker of courage in a sea of fear. Flashes of light erupted around them as the shadows recoiled. But it wasn't enough. The creature hissed, its voice like rusted chains scraping against concrete. "You think you can defeat me? You are nothing but whispers against a storm." The darkness heaved, a chaotic frenzy of whispers and laughter that twisted Sarah's insides. With every heartbeat, she felt their grip weaken. The shadows crept closer again, hungry and ravenous. Somehow, she knew they needed more. More light, more love, more unity. "Close your eyes," she shouted. "Think of the things we love, what gives us joy." For a brief moment, the rhythm of terror paused as Ethan and Lily inhaled deeply, focusing on memories: the warmth of summer days, laughter at the kitchen table, pursuing fireflies under a fading orange sky. And then Sarah felt it. A surge erupted, their combined love, bright and blinding, exploding outward like the sun bursting through a storm. The shadows screamed, a cacophony of rage and regret as they writhed and twisted, the darkness losing its form, losing its grip. But even in the light, the creature snarled, filled with fury. "This isn't over, little mortals. You cannot escape." The ground beneath them trembled violently, fissures splitting the earth as they stood. Sarah could see hints of faces in the shadow, people she once knew, their eyes bright with longing but dulled by the darkness that had claimed them. How could she save them too? Help was the only word she could manage to choke out, directed toward Marcus, anger and grief mingling in her chest for the lost man behind the twisted shell. Underneath the shadows, sparks of humanity still flickered. Stay with me, Ethan urged, his voice stronger now, emboldened by their shared light. Around them, the shadows danced to the rhythm of despair, hazy whispers creeping through her thoughts. Would it really end here? She clung tighter, heart racing, fear twisting her gut. Remember, Marcus, she cried again, feeling desperation clawing at her throat. You can fight this. We can help you. A flash of recognition sparked in his eyes, just as a tendril lashed out, snaking around her ankle, dragging her toward the churning dark torrent. She thrashed, but the darkness was relentless, tightening like a vice. Mom, no, Lily screamed, launching herself toward her mother, but Ethan grabbed her, holding fast. Stay together, Ethan shouted, his voice trembling. In that moment of horror, as Sarah felt herself being pulled into the abyss, she summoned every ounce of hope within her. We are love. We are connected. Suddenly, she felt the warmth of something an echo, perhaps, from the shared memories of her children that burst forth with a life of its own. With it came a deep resonance, a bridge between their souls stretching through the heart of the darkness. But the shadows howled, restless and furious. They knew it was losing control, the balance tipping. In that last fragile moment, Sarah felt the pull of the darkness intensify, threatening to snuff out their light. Then a voice, sharp and penetrating, reached out from the depths, reverberating in her mind like shattered glass. You are nothing. And with that, a blinding flash enveloped Sarah, her scream lost in the din as she slipped into the consuming void. Where would she end up? What awaited her in the darkness? A fleeting thought clawed at her, echoing back to her heart. Even as shadows loomed, love could still hold power. But would it be enough? As the darkness wrapped itself around her tight, a chilling whisper slipped through the chaos, welcome home. With a violent lurch, Sarah was swallowed whole by a torrent of shadow. The air around her turned cold, stinging her skin, and the sound of her children's voices faded into an eerie silence. Panic clawed at her throat. Was this the end? Instinct kicked in. She screamed for Ethan and Lily, but only silence answered her. Where were they? What would happen to them? Before her, the shadows swirled, forming images, people she recognized and those she didn't. Expressions of despair flickered to life, stretching toward her, gaping mouths forming words that never made it out. She could feel their pain as if the darkness itself had wrapped around her mind, making her doubt her own presence. Focus, Sarah. Fight, she whispered, trying to retrieve the warmth of the love they had shared. She concentrated on the bond that connected them. It was a thread, fragile and thin, but it thrummed with energy. Then she saw it, the flicker of light through the overwhelming dark. She reached for it desperately. Lily, Ethan, she called out, her voice echoing like a whisper in a cavern. Suddenly, she felt breath against her cheek, cold and ragged. The shadows morphed, revealing Marcus's twisted visage, his eyes dark voids that screamed with torment. You shouldn't have come here, he rasped, his voice a cruel whisper. You can never leave. Marcus. She trembled, her heart racing. We can save you. Please. He chuckled hollowly, the sound reverberating through her bones. You think love will save us? This place feeds on hearts like yours. You don't know its power. As he spoke, the shadows began to close in tighter, coiling around her like snakes. Memory after memory flooded her mind, moments of joy twisted into taunts. The shadows mocked them, raining insults like daggers. You let him go. This is your fault. You never really cared. No. She screamed against the onslaught. She remembered summer days and laughter, her children's faces lit with joy. Something softened in the darkness, just for a moment. I believe in you. I need you to find me, Sarah whispered, evoking the bond that tied them all. The shadows stilled. A surge shot through her connection like a spark of electricity. Images flashed. Ethan clutching his sister, determination etched on his face. Lily's smile, bright as dawn. They were fighting, together. But as quickly as it came, The image dimmed, pulled back into the consuming dark. No, she cried. The light flickered, sending ripples of hope through the shadows, but the darkness roared back, wild and furious. You will perish in my embrace. All at once, Sarah found herself in free fall, spiraling down into an abyss of whispers and howls. The faces around her morphed into one beast, a specter of despair that loomed larger with every cry. The grip of shadows tightened, pulling her downwards, deeper into the throes of suffering. Then, like a beacon cutting through the night, she heard it, Ethan's voice, fierce and commanding. Mom, hold on. From the depths, a sliver of light emerged. It grew more prominent, brightening the void around her. She reached out, desperate, willing herself to crawl toward it. Come back, Sarah. Don't let go of us. Their words vibrated through her, a lifeline anchoring her even as the dark threatened to swallow her whole. But the darkness twisted and shrieked. You cannot have her. The light flickered again, dimming just as Sarah felt a surge of power radiate from her very core. Would it be enough? Could love truly hold them all together against the consuming force? As the churning nightmare surged once more, shadows screamed, clawing back at the light, desperate to reclaim their prize. What would it take to rescue herself and her children from the grip of despair? With the last of her strength, she screamed, "We are together. We will find each other." And suddenly, everything snapped. Reality gave way to chaos. Mom. The voices echoed and faded as she braced herself for what was to come next. The grip of shadows released suddenly. Sarah gasped, colliding against a cold, hard surface. She blinked against the blinding light that saturated the darkness, her heart pounding in her chest. With frantic breaths, she sat up, scanning her surroundings. The light formed a wide circle around her, and outside that halo, the shadows loomed like a thick fog, dark and ominous. Ethan? Lily? She called, her voice trembling. No answer. The stillness pressed against her, smothering and oppressive. She rose unsteadily to her feet, her eyes darting around as the light flickered. It was eerily silent, save for the faint echo of her own breathing. Suddenly, a chill ran down her spine. It wasn't the cold. It was something else, an awareness, a presence lurking in the shadows. Fear gripped her as she realized she was not alone. Come out, she shouted, her voice stronger than she felt. Show yourself. A low growl rumbled from the darkness, rumbling like thunder beneath her feet. The shadows shifted, twisting into grotesque shapes, faces contorting in silent screams. She stumbled back, her heart racing. Then, she heard it, the unmistakable laughter of children, ringing through the stillness. It was faint but unmistakable. Mom, help us. Sarah's heart leapt, the familiar sound igniting a spark of hope within her. Ethan, Lily. She took a step forward, drawn toward the sound, but the shadows murmured, swirling and shifting, trying to hold her back. No, don't. They hissed, and the laughter went silent. No. She pushed past the creeping dread, her feet pounding as she rushed into the darkness, the memories of their faces fueling her determination. With every step, the air thickened, and the shadows clawed at her, whispering nagging doubts. You'll fail. You always do. They're lost. But she pressed on. Desperation surged as she clung to the thought of Ethan and Lily, imagining their faces bright with joy. Suddenly, the shadows receded a little, revealing a glimmer of light ahead. With renewed vigor, she sprinted toward it. As she neared, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Marcus, but he looked different, more twisted, his face half consumed by darkness. You cannot save them, Sarah, he rasped, his voice dripping with malice. They're already part of this realm. Why continue this futile struggle? No, she cried, her resolve hardening. I want to believe that. I want to lose them. Marcus erupted in laughter, a sound that echoed and twisted into something horrific. You think you can break the bond? Love isn't enough here. This darkness is stronger than you think. The shadows crept around him, feeding off his words, fanning the flames of despair. Sarah flinched, their whispers turning to a cacophony of torment. Still, she fought through the voices, clenching her fists. I'll save them. With a surge of adrenaline, she lunged past Marcus, aiming for the light. As the shadows snapped at her heels, they clawed at her shirt, dragging her back, but she felt something shift in her. She remembered their laughter, their adventures at the park, bedtime stories. The bond of family surged through her veins, igniting a fire. She shouted, "I want to stop. We are together." And at that moment, a crack formed in the shadows, revealing a path towards the light. It pulsed with energy, and she felt warmth radiate from it. But just as she took a step forward, shadows surged back, acting almost like an angry tide, pushing her away. "You think you can resist forever?" they hissed, the voices of lost souls merging into one terrifying sound. In a desperate grasp for their safety, Sarah stretched out her hand, believing in every ounce of love within her. "Ethan, Lily, I'm coming. Hold on." A bright flash erupted as the shadows clawed at her resolve. Would this light lead her to her children or deeper into the darkness? She took a deep breath, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. But as the light flickered, it started to fade. What if she wasn't alone in the struggle? What if something far worse awaited her? The shadows pulsed, alive and hungry. As they constricted around her, Sarah felt their cold touch mingling with her rising panic. The brightness flickered like a faulty light bulb, and she was sure that it wouldn't hold. Time stood still, her heart hammering wildly as she strained to see into the encroaching darkness beyond the light. It was as if the shadows themselves taunted her, whispering secrets only meant for her ears. "You're not strong enough. You don't deserve them." The voices slithered into her mind, wrapping around her thoughts like vines, squeezing tighter with each breath. But in that dark moment, she remembered the warmth of her children's smiles, the sound of their laughter, the love that tethered her to them, and she refused to yield. She planted her feet firmly on the ground. "Enough," she shouted, her voice cutting through the despair. "I will find them." With determination fueling her, she stepped deeper into the fading light, fully embracing the whispering shadows. There was no backing down now. A low rumble emanated from the depths, and the certainty that something sinister lay just out of sight gripped her deeper than fear. It was a piercing dread that pushed her onward, like an invisible hand guiding her to the inevitable. Seconds stretched into eternity as she wandered further. Every twist and turn felt like an invitation to something wicked. A shriek pierced the silence. No, it was a child's wail. Heart racing, she sprinted toward the sound, pushing past the darkness pressing against her. The shadows screamed, trying to pull her back, clawing at her legs, but she pressed on, urgency overtaking her. "Ethan, Lily." Her voice echoed out into the void, woven together with desperation. As she moved, the darkness began to shift, churning violently. Shapes leered from the corners of her sight, grotesque visages of her own insecurities, whispering doubts that tangled with her mind. They flickered in and out of focus like bad memories, just beyond reach of her understanding. Failures, guilt, horrors of abandonment. "Do you really think love can keep danger away?" Marcus's voice hissed from the shadows, now swirling around her more rapidly. "You're still here, yet they're slipping away, unable to hold on in this darkness." "No," she insisted, shaking her head violently. "They're not gone. I can feel them. I want to let you take them." Then, in the thick of the chaos, she saw a light. It was faint, a distant glimmer amidst the consuming shadows. Almost dreamlike, it beckoned her like a siren's call. She knew in her heart that her children were near, drawn towards that flickering glow. She surged forward, closer and closer, but the shadows roared in protest, their claws sinking deeper into her skin, their whispers pressing against her sanity. "Join us, Sarah. You can't fight the inevitable." But the sound of her children's laughter sliced through the darkness, sharp and clear. "Mom, help us. We're scared." "Not if I can help it," she cried, a mixture of pain and resolve compressing her chest. She pushed through, the jagged edges of the shadows clawing at her. But they weren't going to win. Couldn't win. With one last surge of strength, she grabbed at the light, but as her fingers brushed against its surface, a shriek erupted, reverberating through the air. The light exploded around her, illuminating a path behind the curtain of darkness, a passage that vomited out every form of grief she had ever known. The moment of illumination revealed a figure in the distance, an outline of a child, clinging to the shadows desperately. "Ethan." But just as she was about to reach for him, the light fluctuated violently, and the shadows began to warp and morph again. Everything dimmed, and as it did, she heard one last, chilling whisper. You've come too far into the void, Sarah. It's time to decide. Are you ready to lose everything? With that, the light went out entirely. Confronted with darkness, her heart dropped. Was this it? Would she lose her children now? But then she felt something clawing back from inside. A deep, primal instinct. Would it be enough? In the permanent black silence, she could only think. What if she unleashed the true power of her love? Would that light return? Could she find the courage to face the shadows that sought to consume her? The silence around her was suffocating, the weight of the shadows pressing down like a heavy fog. Sarah felt her heart racing, each beat rattling against her ribs. In the blackness, a tingle of high-pitched laughter echoed, and it twisted her gut. It danced around her, rising and falling like the jagged edges of a knife, cutting through her resolve. She strained to listen, hoping for something familiar amidst the chaos. "Mom, help us," came the plea, clearer now, but framed in a freakish sing-song tone that made her stomach churn. It was wrong. It felt wrong. The shadows shifted, eager to drown that sound, desperate to steal it away. "Ethan, Lily," she called again, forcing her voice to remain steady. The air around her thickened, almost alive. She could feel it pushing against her, urging her to turn back. "They're close," she whispered to herself. "They have to be close." But the darkness surged forward, closing in like a vice. The walls felt as if they were crawling, shifting, morphing. She could feel tinges of icy fingers brush against her ankles, creeping up the back of her legs, wrapping her in a chilling embrace. Panic surged within her, a primal instinct screaming for escape. "No." Her voice broke, raw and ragged. Somewhere deep inside, she heard a rustling, her own truth surfacing amidst the noise. "You want to take them." She lunged forward, but the shadows thickened, swallowing her up in an expanse of saturated black. "I want to lose them. I can feel them." As she battled forward, there was no doubt, no break in her will. A luminescent pressure built in her chest, pushing against the confines of despair that threatened to claim her. The echo of her children's laughter morphed into something darker, a taunting melody that reverberated off the walls of her mind. "You don't belong here, Sarah," it sang, each syllable dripping with malice. "Leave now, or everything you love will be consumed." "No," she shrieked, her fingers clawing at the air, desperate to reach beyond the stretching tendrils of darkness. "You can't have them." She stumbled, falling onto her knees, feeling the cold ground beneath her. The shadows lunged, forming grotesque shapes that danced mere inches away. Still, she focused on the faint glimmer that had beckoned her. She held her breath, centering on that shimmering light, willing it to return. Just as she began to gather her strength, the world shifted again. The laughter transformed into a cacophony of cries. Ethan's face appeared for a moment through the void, pale and terrified. "Mom." He reached out, his hands grasping. "Help us, please." The specter of shadows twisted violently as her heart split. What if she couldn't reach him? What if this was a cruel trick? But even in the fading light, she couldn't turn away. "I'll rescue you," she yelled defiantly, digging her fingers into the ground, willing herself to move. The shadows erupted into a frenzy, spinning around her in a wild dance, a storm of despair. "Love cannot save you," they roared back, each voice a discordance that pierced her resolve. Yet, in that moment, blackness ricocheted behind her eyes, a reminder of every chance she'd taken, every warmth she'd felt. The thought of her children lingered, stronger than fear. Could it simply be enough to fight the darkness with love? She surged to her feet, every ounce of anguish pushing her forward. Behind her, the sounds of the shadows morphed, a sea of whispers growing louder, drowning her thoughts. "You have nothing but your love, and that isn't enough." "No," she screamed, choking on their contempt. "You underestimate me." With one final thrust, she launched herself towards the flickering light, desperation lending her strength. As the shadows erupted in a thunderous roar, nearly pulling her off course, she closed her eyes tight, reaching out one last time. The darkness quivered around her, filling her lungs, and just as it threatened to consume her, she felt something click. A sudden warmth ignited from within, a flicker of hope clawing through the despair wrapped tightly around her. But before she could seize it, the void swallowed her whole, and she descended into deeper darkness, What awaited her in that abyss? Would love truly be enough to conquer this nightmare? Or was she racing toward her bitter end? And then, amidst the overwhelming darkness, came a stirring. Something was moving within. What was it? The shadows tightened around her, filling the silence with an unsettling hum. Sarah quaked as she felt the pull of despair nagging at her soul. Everything screamed at her to yield, to abandon the search for her children. But she refused to back down. With every ounce of strength she had, she gathered the memories of laughter and joy, an armory of love snug against her heart. "Ethan, Lily," she cried, her voice shattering the darkness. A fierce warmth surged from within, as if her words had struck a match in the suffocating gloom. The shadows recoiled momentarily, hissing in protest. She could feel a flicker of hope igniting, and she grasped it tightly. Using it as a shield against the creeping fear, the whispers twisted again, their tones now mocking. "You think love conquers all? You will fail, just like the others." They echoed, a cacophony of revulsion and defeat. But inside her, something snapped. There was an urgency in those shadows, a fear of her persistence that rang clear. "If they are lost, then I am lost," Sarah shouted, the power of her declaration rippling through her. In more hesitation, she pressed forward into the embrace of the shadows, head held high. The pulling sensation tugged at her heart, each step closer to the light revealing her children, untethered but bursting with the determination she had wrapped around them. "Keep holding on," she urged, her voice raw yet unwavering. A faint light shimmered ahead, flickering like a starlit hope embedded in darkness. Sarah surged forward, and the shadows howled monstrous cries laced with desperation to keep her from crossing the threshold into the glow. Each footfall sent tremors through the ground, shaking her resolve, but she used it as fuel to boost forward. "Together," she shouted as she slipped into the light. Time paused. She was tumbling into a bright expanse. Her children's laughter rang like chimes through the chaos, and the shadows shrieked louder, furious. The air opened around her, unveiling everything she was fighting for: flower-scented gardens, golden sunsets, picnics on the beach. "Mom, we're here." Ethan's voice cut through the fog. He stood in the embrace of the light, arms outstretched, a fierce light burning in his eyes. "Don't go back. Don't let them take you." Sarah rippled through the last remnant of shadows, an electric current coursing through her. Lily stood beside him, her spirit aglow with determination. "Mom, please, help us." The pleading filled the air, and Sarah's heart swelled with love. She reached for them, and just as her fingers brushed theirs, the shadows screamed, swirling desperately, coiling to snatch them away. But Sarah didn't back down. With sheer force of will, the love she cultivated burst forth like a supernova, radiating warmth and strength, spreading across the chasms of dark. "Together," she cried, clutching her children's hands, squeezing tightly enough to weave renewal into their connection. The tendrils of darkness shrieked, crumbling under the white-hot light, losing its grip. The screams folded into a dreadful hush, and the shadows melted. They writhed and twisted before dissipating into nothingness, like smoke on the breeze. Bright light enveloped them, engulfing the darkness and illuminating everything around. Sarah could feel the warmth seeping into her skin, unfurling her spirit, erasing the despair once choking her. Then they were together, Sarah, Ethan, and Lily, united in their determination. The light was all around, infused with purity and love that radiated endlessly. Gripping her children tight, she laughed, tears of relief spilling down her cheeks. "We did it," she whispered, utterly overwhelmed, her chest tightening with gratefulness. "We're free, Mom," Ethan shouted, beaming. "You beat it." The warmth held them, intertwining their hearts as they faced forward, together, against the horizon. They turned to see the remnants of the shadows fade, the haunting specters losing their power, drifting away like forgotten echoes. As dusk settled on Linden Beach, the wickedness that had plagued their town started to recede, light, replacing the abysmal fear. The townspeople emerged from the depths of dread, stumbling from their own shadows, blinking at the soft sheen of the evening sky. Lifeless expressions twisted into memories of joy, connection reborn. For Sarah, warmth flooded her heart. They would rebuild this town together, not just as survivors, but as a family strengthened by love by the very bonds that had seen them through the darkest times. With her children by her side, they stepped forth to embrace the dawn. "This is just the beginning," Sarah said, a smile breaking across her face. She felt a rush of new beginnings pour through her, a promise whispered against the retreating darkness. One chapter closed, but a new one unfurled before them, a narrative filled with hope and resilience, where love conquered all, and this time, it would be enough. Now, if you enjoyed this conclusion, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this amazing finale. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is what keeps these stories alive.